What causes humans to change? This is an interesting question. I've just had two examples of this play out in my life. One was yesterday, one was tonight. Let's start with tonight's one. So for a while, we've been running Spotify. You may be familiar with Spotify. You get to either pay no money and listen to ads, or you pay money and you have your own streaming service. But here's the catch. If you've got a family and you've got multiple people listening, then you can only listen one person at a time. In my family, this causes many problems. Basically, there's ongoing fights about who should listen to what. And for a while, we put up with this. And there's been little moments of chaos as somebody has taken over the Spotify account. And there's some shouting and there's some screaming, and then eventually one of my children will dominate and they will get to have the Spotify account. Now tonight, for whatever reason, I'm like, you know what? I am sick of this. How much will it cost for all of us to have our own accounts? Now, this fortunately has been thought about by Spotify. And I was like, I know they've got like a family account. I thought it was like $26 or something a month. But in actual fact, we were already paying for two accounts, but none of my family were using the second account. So we're paying for two accounts. We're using one account. I'm like, this is ridiculous. How much more is it? We're already paying $15.99 a month, and the family account is not $26. It's a grand total of $18.99, $3 more. I'm like, great. Upgrade. But what was interesting is as everybody logged in, it logged them all into the same account. And we've got exactly the same problems. I'm like, all right, stop, log out, set up your own account. You got to put in your address. And suddenly all five of us are on our own personal Spotify accounts. Problem solved. Now, the interesting thing is that this situation has been going on for months. Why was it different tonight? I don't know. My kids fighting with each other. My acceptance that I was going to pay $26 if they put it there just to be done with this problem. And notice that I was willing to pay to be done with the problem. And this is what drove it. The fact that it was $3 more than I'm paying for, I'm like, great. This is awesome. Happy to pay. $3 more, done. What was really interesting was that my middle son was not happy with this. He was like, this sucks. Why are we paying $3 more? I'm willing to put up with the pain and suffering and save $3. And that becomes the decision. For him, having the difficulties and problems was more valuable than the $3 a month. For the rest of us, we're like, I want to be finished with the problem. I want the solution. I will pay for $3 a month more. Now, as I'm the decision maker in all of this, and I'm the one paying for it as the father, I'm like, I'm willing to pay for it. I don't want my kids fighting anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of these fights about Spotify. I'm done with it. And I was like, look, if we have to give up Netflix, who wants Netflix? And Hamish, my middle son's like, nah, don't watch Netflix. Sam, my eldest son, no, don't watch Netflix. Me, I don't watch Netflix much. Occasionally, if my wife's into something, I'm like, yep. But really, I just have a Disney account. I'm like, Tom, what are you doing? Disney account? I kind of like Mandalorian. I like Star Wars. Some of it's awesome. Some of it's terrible. It's like, who thought this was appropriate for Star Wars? But they also have Marvel. And they have a bunch of other cool stuff. You know, I'm like, Disney works for me. I noticed the price of that is going up. Another $20 a year. I really like Loki. Like, I really liked Loki a lot, so I'm like, whatever, pay you your money. We has meant that we go to the movies a lot less. Like, I'm not going to the movie. I'm like, Can we put it off? But Hamish was like, hey, Dad, can I go to the movies on Friday? I was like, why? What's up? And he's like, the new Spider-Man's coming out. I was like, the Spider-Man, the cartoon one? He's like, yep. Spider-Man 2 cartoon version. It's like, ooh, look it up. It was very interesting. We'll go and see this one because what I saw was a quote and it said, this is not art, this is a masterpiece. And I'm like, oh, that's a big call for a Marvel cartoon. This is not art, this is a masterpiece. I'm like, I'm curious. So Hamish will go, and I'm very tempted, haven't locked it in at this point, just to get the tickets for my entire family to go on Monday. Even though we've got the Disney, and we'll keep the Disney, I'd still like to see this one. A movie that is a masterpiece, it doesn't come up that often. And it's worthwhile seeing. One of my regrets was not seeing June. I don't know if you're a fan of June. There was a post on GP Down Under recently where June got mentioned and there's a whole bunch of doctors going, yeah, that was an awesome movie. I reread the book after. I first read June years ago, but having seen the movie and then going back to the book, it was a special experience. It was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. And then it's like, okay, the second one's coming. So whenever that comes out, I believe it's in November, which, looking at how time has gone, suddenly we're in November and June 2's out. I'm like, ooh, sweet. I'll go with my drummer from my band. He also seems to like the special effects in these sci-fi movies, so we'll go check that out. So we've had some change, and that change in the Spotify accounts came because of frustration and difficulty and a desire to end the problem. And the payment for that was worth less to me than the solution. $18.99 a month versus $15.99 a month. It's fine. Problem solved. Everybody's on their own account. But I said that there was two of these occasions. And the second one to me was more interesting. This was around my wife changing her mind. And you might think that that happens all the time. You're like, well, of course, she's a woman. She's changing her mind. I'm like, a little sexist, don't you think? And particularly around this topic, which was a New Zealand investment property. You see, way back when, 2012, I'm thinking 2012, my wife went across and purchased 2 properties in New Zealand. And she invested into a real estate course. And they said, look, New Zealand's got an opportunity right now to buy good investments. And so she went over there, and I remember receiving the phone call. It's like, hey, I found 2 good properties. Should I buy them? I'm like, go for it. Take advantage. Make the investment. Worst case, we take the lesson and we'll walk away with a loss of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I don't know. I was like, but if you don't do this, then you will not have that experience. You will not learn what went wrong. So we bought these properties, or she bought these properties, and guess what? They went well. They went well. What was 125 grew over a couple of years. I think it was probably 6 years. 2018, we sold it for 300. Made 175,000 New Zealand dollars. But what's not so interesting is how many New Zealand dollars, but how many patients that is to see. Do you realize how many patients you have to see after tax to make $175,000? It's a fair amount. It's a fair amount. But what was required was the faith and courage to say, yes, we will purchase this property. But when that property got sold, we exchanged it for 2 things. One was a pool on our own property, and secondly, a reinvestment back into a Brisbane property. Now, the Brisbane property's done what the Brisbane property's done. It's gone up as well. But let me tell you, the pool has brought more happiness and more enjoyment to my family's life than another, I don't know, X number of dollars would have. And so I'm very happy with this. But my wife was less happy. You see, what happened was that New Zealand property continued on to go up, and it probably would sell right now for 500,000. And so she sees that, oh, I could have made $200,000, but I'm like, no. You took the profits then and reinvested into another property. Awesome. You swapped one for one, but also a pool. And the pool is epic. It's an epic pool. It's so good. I mean, we live on a significant amount of land, 2 acres. And just before you go, oh, dude, you're living the dream, rural 2 acres, just to let you know the amount of work that 2 acres requires in the summertime is quite extreme. Like, you're talking minimum 4 hours on the weekend, and most likely that is nowhere near enough to actually stay on top of the amount of work. Right now, we're in winter. It's not growing so much. I haven't been on the mower for like 4 weeks. But in summer, I was on the mower twice a week. Do not be deceived by the 2 acres. It's a lot of work. But many things in life are work. You don't get out of the work of life. At least not if you want to live a particular way. If you want to live in an apartment, totally cool. I get it. Guess what? There's not much outdoor work to do. You certainly do not have to invest 2 mows per week in summer, plus the brush cutting, plus the planting, plus the hedging, plus the pool. All of that stuff takes work. But if you live in an apartment, you also don't get to enjoy the family going to the pool and playing for 2, 3, 4 hours. These memories, these happy experiences. So it's all a balance. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to invest in? What are you willing to take a risk on? See, life to me is pretty cool. Irrespective of what happens, there's always a lesson. If things go badly, there's a lesson. If things go well, there's a lesson. And my wife has been unwilling to let go of the second New Zealand property in case it goes up another 100,000, or it goes up and it goes up, or whatever it does. Who knows? She has not wanted to sell. But here's what's interesting. We went through the numbers and we discovered something just a little bit alarming. You might be familiar with this, the idea that the interest rate cliff. And we're part of that. We're part of that cliff. Not all of our mortgages, but one of our mortgages is on that cliff. And we looked up the interest rate and we're paying 1.89%. 1.89. I'm like, whew. Gee, I wish all of my debt was at 1.89 for like the next 5 years, but it's not. That chunk of debt is the last remaining on the fix, and it comes off in October. And I was like doing the numbers, going through the numbers, and my wife was on board for this discussion around the numbers. And suddenly it became very apparent that we have a significant problem in October. When that debt comes off, according to my numbers right now, if there are no further interest rate rises, our monthly repayments go up $2,500 per month. Now, I don't know how that feels to you, $2,500 per month, but to me, I'm like, whew, that's a lot of cash. That's a lot of seeing patients. And I was like, we need to do something about this. And she saw that as well. She was like, oh, wow, yeah, we do need to do something about it. And where there was a resistance before, because there was no clarity on exactly what was going on, suddenly when the numbers were clear and the work was done to get clear on what is going on, suddenly the decision was very different. And I was like, whoa, we need to take some action. And I don't know if you've ever sold a property, they don't just sell the next day. Takes a bit of work, takes a bit of effort. You've got to find an agent. You've got to get it on the market, got it ready for sale, get the tenants alerted to what's happening. It just doesn't happen the next day. So we've got a little time for sure. 1st of June today. But as I said, the years go quick. Suddenly we're October. I'm like, you want to sell? And she was like, yeah, I want to sell. I'm like, great. I think that's the best thing we can do for our family right now. Get this sold, pay down our debt so that when October comes, we're in a far greater position. A position that we can actually get through that. And there's a lot of pain out there, at least for people with mortgages or rentals. Baby boomers, not so much. They've been through all of this. They're 18% stories, but I guarantee you their low mortgages were not the $1 million mortgages that many of us have right now. You see, 6% on $1 million is probably a whole lot more interest than 18% on $22,000 or even $50,000. So it's hard at the moment. It's hard. Like, people are hurting. But you got to get clear on what's going on and make the best decision for what is required. The skill sets that you have are critical. Are you willing to look at the numbers? Are you willing to look and go, whoa, my interest rate's about to go from 1.89 to 6% in October. And if that's going to happen and I have no control over that, then what do I have control over and what needs to be done? And suddenly the decision making becomes clear. So for you, you might need to look at your life and say, hey, what am I ignoring? What am I pretending isn't a problem but actually is? Perhaps it's mortgages, perhaps it's something else. Perhaps it's your weight. Perhaps it's your relationship with life itself. Perhaps it's relationship with your partner or with your kids or your parents that you have put off and ignored and said, you know what, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. But one day, all of us won't be here. And you might come to regret not investing or not making the decision to say, I want to have that fixed. And just like selling a New Zealand property or upgrading to a family plan on Spotify, it starts to make sense to say, yes, this is what must be done. And I'm committed to making that happen. All right, I'm going to check out for tonight. I hope you got some value from this particular live. We're living in challenging times, particularly as doctors. Our patients look to us not just for health, but also for leadership. If that's something that you're interested in, head over to GraduateMedicine.com and check out the links there, particularly around a program called Clinical Certainty. I'm going to go hang out with my family. I hope you got some value. I look forward to seeing you soon on another live very soon. Have a great night. Catch you then.